the three metrics you spoke about, TSH, T3, and T4, are they the three main biomarkers one looks at for thyroid health?
Yeah. So when we are talking about thyroid health, so let's say if you go to your doctor and you have 10 out of these 20 symptoms, right? The first set of numbers, all the doctors will check is a TSH. And that is the recommended screening from every organization, every association. So we don't have to go jump the gun and order $1,000 workup on everyone. No, just start with the TSH first. If your TSH is plunk normal, most of the time you do not have a thyroid problem unless, and there's one condition that do that, which is a pituitary gland. So like Nikhil, you mentioned the very first, if the pituitary gland is not making thyroid hormone, then your TSH will never go high. So in that scenario, your TSH will never rise despite you having symptoms. But there, the TSH is normal and the symptoms are here. So there's a disproportionately very high symptoms. And many of the time, people have tumor, people have headaches, people have blurred vision, they have eye vision loss, and they have many other symptoms which corroborate this being a pituitary disease. And remember, pituitary disease is very, very, very uncommon. So we're talking about 0.01. Right? So not everybody has a pituitary disease. So we start with the TSH. And if the TSH is low or high, you have your answer. Whether it's borderline or truly high or truly low, that's a different story. But as an endocrinologist, we believe that even borderline in some patients need to be treated, right? So it depends upon the symptom complex and the TSH together. So we do that. If the TSH is completely normal and your symptoms are completely out of whack, then you go ahead and check a T3 and T4 if you need to find out if there's a real problem at the pituitary gland. And if T3, T4 both are also very low, then it's a pituitary problem, clearly. But you have to have a low normal TSH or normal TSH, a low T3 and a low T4, which does not happen in any other circumstance. Like I told you, they work opposite to each other. So that's the only time you have a pituitary problem. One other test, which is very commonly ordered, and we should do it, especially if there's a strong family history or genetic history of hypothyroidism or underactive in your family, then we check the thyroid antibodies. And they're same antibodies, but they have two names, the TPO antibodies, and they're called the microsomal antibodies. So these are the antibodies that destroy the gland slowly and slowly and slowly. So if you have those antibodies in your thyroid, then the chances are, we call this Hashimoto's. I think a name is familiar to many of you probably. If you have Hashimoto's disease, 3% people will become underactive every year. So eventually Hashimoto's will lead to hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid, but it may take years to happen. So if you do have the antibodies, I think it makes me more suspicious that you will probably develop underactive thyroid. And there's one more thing which I really want to talk about here, because I think it'll help and it'll just connect you. So let's start the Hashimoto's disease you have. So it's like you're a factory owner, but you have a factory with a diseased worker, because Hashimoto's antibodies are killing your thyroid slowly and slowly and slowly. So what's happening is, you are the owner, you have a factory with 500 people, out of them 250 workers are diseased because of the Hashimoto's. So the factory is only working on 250. But as an owner, you want the factory to produce. So what are you going to do? You're going to hire more people. You keep hiring more people, but eventually workers who come to the factory still get diseased, because the disease itself in the factory and not in the worker. So the two things happen. Number one, your factory size gets larger. Okay. And the second thing that happens is the workers stay on different places, because, diseased workers don't want to mingle with healthy people. And so what you get is irregularities. So now put it back together. Eventually, of course, the factory gets diseased, everybody stops working, and your levels go down. So now put this in the thyroid context. So your thyroid is getting bigger by the day if you have Hashimoto's, and eventually you can develop a goiter. A goiter is nothing but an enlarged gland. That's all we call a goiter. But in that goiter, then you start developing nodules. So some of the nodules are working too much to keep up with the thyroid, and the other nodules are not working at all. So they're called hot nodule and cold nodules. Now, the problem with the nodules are they're all pretty good most of the time. 95% of them are normal. 5% of them can also develop cancer. So if we leave the Hashimoto's untreated for a long time, especially if the patients have symptoms, your body will continue to compensate and compensate till it cannot compensate no more. But at that time, you may have a big goiter. So I just want to make that clear.